One person can't change the world, but one person carrying a message can. At 92 years old, Willie Nelson has lived through more heartbreak, more loss, and more reinvention than most people could survive. He's buried friends, lost fortunes, and outlived nearly everyone he once called family. And now, in what might be the twilight of his life, he's revealing something that's shocking everyone who hears it. Not about fame or fortune, but about death itself. Willie doesn't fear dying. In fact, he's made peace with it. When asked what he thinks about the end, his answer is brutally simple. It's just another part of life. But what does it take for someone who's seen so much pain to find that kind of peace? The answer lies buried in a story most fans never heard. A lifetime of abandonment, heartbreak, and loss that taught Willie something few of us ever learn. This isn't the romanticized version of his life. This is the story of how a man stripped of everything, love, wealth, and health, discovered that freedom doesn't come from holding on. It comes from learning to let go. Willie Hugh Nelson entered the world in 1933 in a small Texas town called Abbott, the kind of place where dreams dried up faster than rain on dirt. His parents had big ambitions that didn't fit the small-town life, and when those dreams called them elsewhere, they left. His mother walked away when he was 6, leaving Willie and his sister Bobby with their grandparents, promising to return when times got better. She never did. His father remarried and moved on. For a child, abandonment like that isn't something you just outgrow. It buries itself deep, shaping the way you see everything and everyone. Willie's grandparents filled the silence with music. They gave him his first guitar, taught him hymns, and showed him how to turn pain into melody. But no song could erase the question that haunted him. Why wasn't I enough to make them stay? During the Texas summers, Willie worked cotton fields with migrant laborers, his tiny hands blistering under the burning sun. That's where he learned one of life's first cruel lessons. The world doesn't owe you comfort. It owes you nothing. And if you want to survive, you have to keep going. The young boy who bled in those fields grew into a man who refused to quit, no matter how much it hurt. He was already learning that when life takes everything from you, sometimes the only thing left to hold on to is a song. By the time Willie made it to Nashville, he'd written songs that could make grown men cry, but he couldn't pay his own bills. His wife Martha and their 3 kids were living paycheck to paycheck, while other stars made millions off the songs he wrote. The frustration ate at him. Martha wanted stability. Willie wanted a dream. Their fights turned from arguments to battles. He drank heavily, trying to drown the noise in his head with whiskey. But no matter how much he drank, the reality stayed the same. The man who could write "Crazy" for Patsy Cline couldn't fix the chaos inside his own home. One freezing night in Nashville, everything broke. The rejection letters piled up, the money ran out, and the marriage felt dead. Willie walked into the street, laid down on the cold pavement, and waited for headlights. He didn't want fame. He didn't want fortune. He just wanted it to stop. But no car came. He lay there until the tears froze to his face, realizing that even death didn't want him yet. When he got up and walked home, something had changed. He'd touched rock bottom and lived. That night taught him that giving up doesn't end the pain. It just passes it on. From then on, every song he wrote carried that same message. You can break, but you can't quit. He didn't know it yet, but that lesson would save him again, decades later, when the pain came back in the most devastating way imaginable. December 25th, 1991. For most people, Christmas is a day of family and joy. For Willie Nelson, it became a day he'd never escape. His eldest son, Billy, talented, sensitive, and full of potential, had been struggling for years with depression and the unbearable pressure of being Willie Nelson's son. He didn't just carry the family name, he carried the world's expectations. That morning, While families across America were opening gifts, Billy decided he couldn't fight anymore. He ended his life. He was only 33. When Willie got the call, it was like his heart stopped beating. The man who could always find words for his pain suddenly had none. The house that once echoed with music was silent. He didn't cry in public. He didn't make a statement. He just stopped talking. His sister Bobby later said that Willie's grief was so deep, words couldn't reach it. Losing Billy changed him in ways nothing else could. He learned that not all wounds make you stronger. Some just change who you are forever. He stopped asking why and started asking, what now? That Christmas broke something inside him, but it also began the slow process of acceptance. The man who once thought he understood pain now realized that true love sometimes means understanding why someone might choose to leave. And as he faced the years ahead, he carried Billy's memory not as a wound, but as a reminder. Nothing, not fame, not success, not even music, matters more than peace. Before he could even begin to heal, another storm hit. The IRS showed up at Willie's door with a bill that didn't seem real. $32 million in unpaid taxes. Decades of bad business management and blind trust had destroyed everything. Agents seized his homes, his gold records, his ranch, even his recording equipment. The man who'd written the soundtrack of America suddenly had nothing. Advisors told him to file for bankruptcy, to start over, but Willie refused. He said, "I won't screw people out of what they're owed." Instead, he came up with something no one expected. He released the IRS tapes, "Who'll Buy My Memories," and album "Wherever." Dollar went toward paying his debt. Then he hit the road again, playing small-town gigs, county fairs, anywhere that would have him. Night after night, he sang his heart out, not for fame, but to buy back his freedom. Slowly, he paid every cent. And when it was over, he realized something profound. Losing everything didn't destroy him. It set him free. He didn't need the ranch, the cars, or the trophies. He just needed the music. The IRS had taken his possessions, but they couldn't take the one thing that mattered, the part of him that could still make people feel something. It was his second great rebirth. First, he'd survived despair. Now he'd survived ruin. And the next time life tried to take something from him, it would be his breath. For years, Willie joked that weed kept him alive, but his lungs told a different story. Decades of smoking, tobacco first, then marijuana, had taken a toll. His first real scare came in 1981 when his lung collapsed during a family trip to Hawaii. The pain was unbearable, but he recovered and went right back to work. By his 80s, though, the damage was catching up. Emphysema, pneumonia, chronic shortness of breath. His voice, once endless, began to fade. In 2015, doctors told him he might never sing again unless he tried a risky stem cell surgery. Willie agreed, because quitting wasn't an option. The recovery was brutal, but he made it through. Then in 2022, he faced something worse: COVID. At nearly 90 years old, with failing lungs, it could have been the end. His wife, Annie, turned their home into a medical unit, fighting for his life hour by hour. And somehow, he survived. When he finally spoke about it, his words were hauntingly calm. Dying's just another kind of change. That was the moment the world understood. Willie wasn't fearless because he was tough. He was fearless because he'd already met death once, and realized it wasn't something to fight. It was something to understand. They called themselves the Highwaymen. Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Kristofferson, and Willie Nelson. 4 legends, 4 rebels, 4 brothers bound by music and defiance. One by one, they all passed on. Waylon in 2002, Johnny in 2003, Kris in 2024, and now only Willie remains, the last highwayman carrying the torch for a band that defined a generation. Watching them die changed how he viewed his own fate. Each of his brothers faced death with grace. Cash sang until his final breath. Waylon fought until he couldn't. Kris kept writing, even as his body weakened. None of them feared the end. They just kept creating until they couldn't anymore. That's when Willie realized something few people ever do. Being the last one left isn't a triumph, it's a responsibility. He's not here to mourn the past. He's here to keep the music alive for as long as he can. When he steps on stage now, he's not just singing for himself. He's singing for them, for the ones who left too soon, and for the ones still listening. Because as long as he's playing, they're all still here. So why isn't Willie Nelson afraid of death? Because he's already learned the truth most of us spend our lives avoiding. Everything you think you own, everyone you think you'll have forever, will eventually slip away. He's lost love, family, fortune, and health. And yet, here he is, still smiling, still singing, still living. He doesn't cling to the idea of forever anymore. He knows forever doesn't exist. In interviews, he often laughs when asked about dying. When it's my time, he says, I'll just go see what's next. That calm acceptance comes from experience, from surviving so much loss that death no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like a familiar face. Willie's secret is that he doesn't chase happiness. He chases peace. He's not afraid of the final verse because he's already written his masterpiece. And he understands that death isn't the end of the song. It's just where the melody fades into silence. At 92, Willie Nelson has outlived his heroes, his enemies, and most of his friends. He's faced poverty, grief, betrayal, and illness, and somehow turned every heartbreak into harmony. His story isn't about avoiding pain, it's about transforming it. He's shown that real strength isn't pretending to be fearless. It's learning to live fully, even when you know how fragile life is. Every time he steps on stage now, every note he sings is a reminder. We don't control how long the song lasts, only how deeply we play it. Willie's life proves that acceptance isn't surrender, it's wisdom. And maybe that's the message he's been carrying all along, that the bravest way to face death is by learning how to live. So, as the lights dim and the final notes fade, Willie Nelson smiles, because he's already made peace with the one truth that scares the rest of us. We're all just here, for as long as we're here.